Okay, this is a simple simulation of equifinality in action. What we have are three people with slightly different scores across 15 attributes, but they will all show a similar job performance score of near 40. Just happens to be that's the way those attributes go together and compensate for one another. So that's basically equifinality in action. You can have different variables, as we're seeing here, not completely different, but slightly different, which will always produce the same kind of score. That mucks up prediction because you can't just pick an attribute or one or two, and from that, then attain an accurate prediction. What I'm also showing here is that as people vary in terms of external circumstances and impacts and situational constraints, so will those scores vary, and that will give you a wider job performance histogram. So let's start the simulation. And so what I'm doing is taking snapshots every second or so of the job performance scores given the scores that we're looking at on the 15 attributes. So I've added in some jitter behind the scenes just to give a little bit of variability. Otherwise we'd have a straight line everywhere. If we now take into account, okay, people will respond differently as things happen to them. So this is life events, tragedies or whatever. That introduces a variability now around that 40. And you can see from the colored sort of scores, that kind of variability, what it does to the scores. What we're seeing here is, this is why prediction doesn't really work, because if you try and say, well, what predicts job performance? It's now very difficult because as people change daily, almost like a trait versus state representation, but let's ignore all of that. That state stuff is just, no, that's just normal variability as people respond to external events. You can see it's very difficult to actually find any clear predictor. And that's why we can't predict job performance very well. We've been trying for not hundreds, but maybe decades. And we can do pretty well, but you can't really exceed a certain threshold because of this variability. And this is the basis really of self-organizing systems that respond on a daily basis to different impacts. So we get near to it, but we can't really proceed much further because it just becomes messy. And now you begin to see why an AI has no chance. The AI can only do as well as we can do because it doesn't know what those external events are. It has no idea how a self-organizing system will respond. And so you're left with basically what we're looking at here. So if, something awful happens to this person, then the variability increases and that job performance histogram begins to get wider and wider. That's why it's difficult to actually fixate on anything that says we can predict something accurately. Anyway, there we go. It's only a simple simulation, but I hope you can see what I'm driving at here and how equifinality really does impact how we predict things.